Whew, phew, that was cool. You want to learn that? Sure, let's jump up to After Effects, let's go check it out. Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Veikko and welcome to another Phenomenal Creations video effect tutorial. Because all doing well, and this video is going to be pretty exciting because we're taking a look at one heavily requested video effect is the Hancock or the superhero landing, as you saw in just a couple seconds ago in the preview in the intro. So this is something we're gonna do, but before we jump in, I want to make a super big apology for not being around for the past 2 months or so, because I've done school stuff with finals and colleges and film school applications. Those a lot of rolling and take a lot of time. So this effect is pretty heavily effect packed, a lot of stuff is going on here. So let's go ahead and start the tutorial. It's gonna be super awesome, so let's just go. To start out, we have to create a new composition. So let's go ahead to the project panel, find our footage, and all my footage and alongside all the assets are downloadable in the description. So you put that to the new comp button and you get your whole new composition. So there's a few things we have to keep in mind here. My sister Shadow, who was shooting this footage, is visible on the screen, and we have to fix that because we need a clean plate. So how we do that is we go ahead and scale up the footage. We scale up to something like a 109%, and we're going to use the arrow keys to move the clip downwards so we don't see that anymore. The next thing we have to do is to find the point where I'm going outside the frame so we can capture our clean plate. So we just have to scroll through the video so we can find our clean plate. So that's one of the splits, but then also the other one we have to do is right here where I'm coming down from the air. So that's something we're gonna need because we don't need anything before that. And then let's go ahead and here use the Command Shift D, Control Shift D, and split the layer right here because it's just a short section we need from the middle, and then we can just rename the top layer to clean plate because everything thereafter is just environmental shot, and we're gonna put that beneath the main footage layer so we have the environmental background we need. And after that we're gonna just find the frame where I touch the ground, and that's all like 5 frames or something because we don't need any more than that to animate me falling from the sky. That's like the big deal there. So just find the frame where I'm just touching the ground and then split the layer once again, so it's just like 5 frames, and we can go ahead and rename that to Roto because that's what we're gonna use and call it here on after. Don't ask me why I call it, I'm just gonna call it like that. So the next thing to do is to roto out this myself because I have to separate myself from the foreground and the background. So how I'm gonna do this is just use the roto brush tool, and if you don't have ever used the roto brush tool, I have a whole video dedicated teaching you guys how to use the roto brush tool. So I'm gonna skip this part, and because you just have to separate myself from there, and if you don't know how to do that, check the video, links in the description, go check that out. But in other case, have fun rotoing. I will be back in just a second while I have rotoed out my guy. So after you have done your roto magic, you can check if it did work by just turning on and off the roto layer and can see if it disappears or not. If it did, lucky for you, it did work. So now we have to go ahead and animate the fall from the sky. So let's go ahead and click the animation for the positioning. Let's punch it on the time so we can see what we're doing. We have to work ourselves backwards now. So let's put the first keyframe we just created to the end so we keep the exact position. Then we just move myself up like on the top of the frame, and then let's review how it looks like. So okay, we have a fall, it's pretty jagged, we need some motion blur because that will make it real. So let's go ahead and activate motion blur for that clip, and that will help the whole clip to make it a bit more fluid. It's not perfect yet, but it helps to have that motion blur there. Then what we're going to do, we can go ahead and emphasize it just a little bit. So let's go find directional blur from the effects and presets panel. By taking that, we can go ahead and put the blur length to something around 100. That could seem quite right. And then we just make a very simple animation for the blur length from the beginning as 100 and as to the end as something like 0. So just like a very, very simple fade out from a very blurry to not blur. So that makes the fall very fluid, as you can see here. So now it looks like a pretty solid fall off. Now it's time to add the crack element, the ground crack element, so we can see we're shattering the ground when we hit it. So this is the element itself. It's pretty cool, and you can also, as known, you can download it in the description if you want this. So it's a cool CG element about it. So we're gonna go ahead and blend that into our scene, and it's actually not so hard, even though it's not matching in color. Let's go ahead and scale it down to make it fit our proportions here. You can use the scale panel or something like a palette gear. If you want to scale it down, you can choose however to scale it. Let's go ahead and turn it 3D also, so we can go ahead and rotate it on the X-axis in the 3D space, so it matches the perspective a little better. Then we can use the arrows for the Z and Y axis, so it really matches where our legs are. The scene is not 3D, so we're just making these small adjustments for it looks to look good. Now we have to go key out the whole element here, so let's go find from the effects and presets panel the key light effect. Let's drop it down and use the picker tool to find the gray color there, and then we'll just remove the gray color as a whole. It looks pretty cool. We got all the contrast we needed, so we don't have to use the blending modes. So this is like the best key we can use in this scenario. So the only thing we have to do now is to time it right so we can position it and so it matches the scene, because it can't crack in the beginning of the composition. It has to crack when we hit the ground. So that's what we're gonna do. We move it there and position it and time it correctly. We can also go ahead and rename this to ground crack just to keep ourselves organized. Alright, now it's time for the next part of the tutorial, and it's pretty frustrating for many of you, I assume, because we're gonna have to do some more rotoing because our feet and my hand is in front of the ground crack layer. So you can use the roto brush tool if you want to, but I'm gonna manually roto out this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate using Ctrl D or Command D on this normal footage layer to have a duplicate, and then I will rename it to something like crack roto just so I know what I'm working with. So now what I'm gonna do is just take the pen tool or hit the G on your keyboard or select the pen tool and create a simple mask around my both legs and my hand. And then I'm gonna use the mask path option just to animate the mask to move according to my legs and to my hand for the next 1 second. And if you do this very good and you take your time, it will look a lot better in the end. So you don't have to rush this. This is a pretty long process, so I'm just speeding up this part so you're not getting bored. But if you don't know how to animate masks, there's plenty of tutorials online, and I won't dive too deep into that right now. So let's go ahead and check this out so we have a good roto in the end. And when you have done a successful masking from the legs and feet, it should look pretty solid from here. And now when the crack is out of the way, we can go ahead and add the smoke layers, which will just add the atmospherical impact from the falling itself. So let's go ahead and add the first element just underneath the roto layer, and let's go ahead and select the rectangular tool. And okay, now I'm using on the wrong layer. That's no problem. Let's just select the smoke layer, and then we're just gonna add at the bottom of the base of the smoke element, and then just invert the mask, and then we're just gonna feather it out a little bit, and then we're gonna select the screen transfer mode so we can get rid of all the blacks and make it transparent, and then it doesn't have the harsh bottom. So now we can just position it somewhere around the crack, and when we go ahead and check out and after we have timed it correctly, it should look quite cool. Just have this smoke puff. It doesn't look perfect yet because we're gonna add some more, a different color, different speeds, but it looks pretty okay. So once everything is in place, we can see my hand and legs. There's some blank space between the smoke and me, and it doesn't look so natural. We can go ahead and fix that in just a couple of minutes, but let's go ahead and add some more smoke here. So let's go ahead and duplicate the original smoke layer by using Ctrl D, Command D, you know the drill, and let's go ahead and put it on top of everything, so on top of every layer, so it's in front of me. Then what we're going to do is position it a little bit and use the tint layer to desaturate it. We can use something like 75% blend from the original, and then I don't want it to look exactly the same, so let's go ahead and for the transform tool, let's go ahead and flip it horizontally so it looks a little bit more different. Let's position it once again to the middle, and we're going. I want to make it a little bit bigger, so let's go ahead and scale it up just so it gives the variation. That's what I want, and also I want to time it differently so it's in a different kind of speed than the first one. To accomplish that, I'll go to time and time stretch, and then you can head and play with the values what you feel like. I want to go to something like 50-60% to make it double as fast, just to give the time and variation so it's a bit faster. So when we'll go ahead and look at the clip, it looks pretty solid, so it's a little bit bigger, and we can go also ahead and play with the opacity to make it a little less transparent, or more transparent, so it looks a bit more different, and that gives the very cool impact. So there's a lot of smoke moving like in three-dimensional space, and that really sells the effect apart when you have this a lot of environment getting affected by this effect. And then we can go ahead and back to the thing. We can see here the mask is interfering, it doesn't look natural. We have to go fix this. So this is also a boring process because it's a long roto thing going on. So let's go ahead and just fix this thing because it looks so much better in the end while it got it fixed. So let's go ahead and just add the masking. We already have the keyframes, so we'll just add some more keyframes here. I'm gonna speed this up so you're not getting bored, but we're just gonna fix all the blank spaces here, going frame by frame of just fixing everything, because it will look so much better in the end when you're done the dirty work really well. Now when we're reviewing what we have here, because we have done the dirty work, it looks a lot better. Now when we have the hands and the legs free, and the dust is free to move as freely as it should be. So the next part is to add the stones, the debris, the whole main focus of the effect itself. And I have also the stones available for you to be downloaded in the description. So let's go ahead and select the both layers, or for you it's gonna be just one layer merged together. I have like the shadow and the stones separately, so you have like this. And then this is a very simple part. We're just gonna trim off the first 2 frames because those are not needed, and we're gonna position them on the impact. We're gonna position it also on our legs. We're gonna scale it up and just position it. That's this basic implementation of assets. And then when we watch it, we can look how it looks like. These assets are so good from ActionVFX.com. It's basically just you implement it to the scene and they work right away. But there's a few things we have to adjust, is the coloring and the shadowing, because there's a part of the scene which is under shadow. We have to go manipulate the coloring there separately, but those are very easy things to do. This is actually the easiest part of the tutorial here. So let's go ahead and start manipulating the coloring for the stones there. So let's go to Effects and Presets panel and find the Curves adjustments. And then let's go ahead and we're going to add to the first layer here, but let's go ahead and rename those just so we can see what we're working with. As for me, it's going to be stones and shadows, but for you, it's going to be just one layer merged together. So that's good for you. I have them separately. So when we punch in and look at the stones, we can just pull up the RGB and pull up the brightness so it starts to match. We can put up some reds, take down the blues, and really trying to match it as well as possible for the ground surrounding it. So when we got that out of the way, it should look a bit better, but then you see it's too bright for the left side where the shadow, they don't match at all. So we have to go ahead and add something very simple. We have to just go duplicate our stone layer, so Control D, Command D, as you know, and take the pen tool and create a very simple mask just around the shadowed part. So like a big fat mask there. And using this mask, we can just add we can manipulate the curves. We can go ahead and reset that and just drop the brightness down. And then we can go ahead and also drop the reds down so it gets a little more this green bluish shade there. So now we can see all the stones that will go to that area will get darker because we duplicated the original file, so we don't have to play with the adjustments layers. Add some feathering, and we got a pretty solid effect here. You can see this looks pretty realistic because one part is darker because in the shadows, and the other part is bright sunlight. So that looks super cool, and thanks to ActionVFX.com for having these awesome assets for us to make these kind of cool effects. So now we have reached the point where the hardest part is over, so we can pre-comp everything and call it base. So now we have the base of the whole effect done. So now we have to go and add some distortion and add some color grading and all those kind of camera movements and stuff, and that's going to be super cool. So let's go ahead and add the distortion first, because that's going to be a very interesting one. Okay, so when we go ahead and create a distortion, it all starts out with a solid, and there's a couple of very important steps to not forget. So let's go ahead and create a new solid and call it distortion or S-boom, sonic boom, whatever you want to call it. Just give it a name. And then once you've done that, you have to go pre-comp it directly right now. And if you don't do that, this effect will not work in the end. So just remember to pre-comp it. It really adds and will not take that much time. And when you have that done, what you're gonna do is you gotta go ahead and open up the pre-comp with the solid. Once you have to open up the solid, we're gonna go ahead and add the fractal noise effect for it. And we can just keep it on basic or dynamic progressive, and we're gonna bump up the contrasts and the brightnesses is on different kind of values, so we get this very contrasty look. Somewhere around 200 could be pretty cool, and -35 for the second value. You really have to play around because different kind of values give different kind of looks, but I think these works pretty fine. Let's bump up the complexity, and then let's go ahead and alt click the evolution and type in time and star 250. So how does it work? So we make an expression that will make it loop with the evolution with 250 evolution pixel magic things. So once you got that out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and add an elliptical mask, and once we have added an elliptical mask, we're gonna go animate this elliptical mask thingy so it works like a little sonic boom, if you will. So how to do that is you double click, triple click on the M key to get all the mask properties, and take the mask expansion to a very low number so it's not visible, and then just for like a couple frames it will bump up into super amounts and then back to 0 or -100 or until it's not visible. So you're getting like this pulse animation, a very simple animation, just like up and down. Add some feathering, so we have this like cloud booming with an evolving fractal noise cloud in the middle. So this is gonna work as the base for our distortion. And you probably are wondering, how can this become distortion? Just looks like a thundercloud, but it does work, because when we go ahead and add an effect to the base layer, this will work out very good. We can go ahead and adjust the timings of the cloud impulses so it matches the scene length and the power, and you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can make it more advanced or whatnot. But now we're going to ahead and add the displacement map effect to the base layer and not the sonic boom layer. And then we're going to and tell After Effects to look at the distortion from the distortion comp we just made and change the levels to luminance, so just looking at the black and white sections. Then we can go ahead and we can see what it's doing, but if we're gonna check it out, okay, it's gonna look pretty freaking terrible right now if we kick up some incredible amount of numbers there. Let's go ahead and add the numbers 7 and 7, something small, something discrete, so it doesn't look too bad, but it still gives this awesome cool distortion pulse. And also, things good to know that if you want to go ahead and change the parameters, how fast the evolution is working, you can really easily go do that at any point of the video or at any point of your progress, just to go change it to match it your scene. I'm just doing this one way, but you can do it however you want, so feel free to go change the value as you see fit. So once you have created a distortion that really fits your needs and it looks perfect to your eyes, and once we're satisfied with this, we can go ahead and pre-comp everything and just call it final. So it's just a couple layers, these two, and we're gonna call this final. So now we can go ahead and move to the last two things, which is the camera movement and the color grading. So moving up to the camera movement, we want this digital camera shake, but it would still look organic, and that would be very nice. So we can go ahead and activate slider controls from the effects and presets panel. So let's go ahead and find them, one of them, and then just duplicate it. So we have two of them. We can rename it to frequency and amount. You will understand why in just a second. Now let's go ahead and hit A on our keyboard and activate anchor point for the final layer. And then we can go ahead and alt click the stopwatch. So hold the alt key and click the stopwatch to get to the expression controls. And we're gonna write this very simple expression. Type in wiggle open parentheses, and now we're going to use the pick whip tool to take the frequency slider as a value. So now we're going to use, instead of putting a numeric value, we're going to use that as a value so we can control it later. Then you're just going to hit a comma and take again the pick whip tool and drag it to the amount slider, and then put an end parentheses to close up the expression. So now when we get that, we can animate and control the amount of wigglity and the camera shake we want. That's super powerful. So now it's time to add the animation for the camera shake, and you can do this however you want. I'm gonna just make it something very simple, so it's very settle, and when I hit the ground it's gonna be super intense, and then it's just gonna settle down in the end. So how I'm gonna do that is just add those keyframes, activate the stopwatches, and make an animation for a very settle amount, so like frequency to 2 and the amount to 6, until just a 5-6 frames forward until we get to the crash, and we're gonna bump that up to something like 7 frequency and 14 amount or something like that. And then we're just gonna, and after that we're just gonna take like 10 frames forward and just put it all back down to frequency 4 and amount to 7 or something like that. So it's just a very gradual strength in the beginning, and then it's just gonna settle down, so we get this cool impact that there is a camera shake, but when I hit the ground it's gonna be super powerful. Now we can see there's some black bars or just transparency because the comp is moving around. So let's go ahead and scale up the composition to something like 105%, just so we don't have any like transparency there. And because cameras also rotate around their axis a little bit when you hold it in their hands, so let's go ahead and activate the rotation properties. I'll click the stopwatch and type in another wiggle expression. This time it's going to be a lot more simpler. So type in wiggle, open parentheses, 1, 0.5 closed, and end parentheses, making it look a lot more natural even though it's digital. Then we can go ahead and add some anamorphic bars. This is just to add the cinema feel, and it's gonna help us to position and frame the final effect in the middle and how we want it, and have some extra control. After we have added the frames, we're gonna make a very simple animation. The last animation of this tutorial is to animate the position going from up to down, so it looks like the camera is tilting even though it's not. So let's go ahead and take the position and create this very simple up to down animation with a little bit of delay from the jump. So when after I hit the ground, then I just do the animation, so it looks like the camera is behind the actor just a little bit. This will add this, that the camera is trying to keep up with me falling from the sky, but it's not, and it really gives this very strong impact. So that looks very cool when you have done that. Now it's just a matter to give it a cool color grade and all this kind of cool stuff. So I'm gonna have 2 adjustment layers. The first one called HDR Pass. I'm gonna use the effect Unsharp Mask. It's a very cool plugin to give some cinematic sharpening. We're gonna use the values 25 for amount and 20 for radius. Then for the color correction, just gonna jump a very simple curves adjustment there, where I'm gonna put, for the RGB curve, I'm gonna make a very simple S curve, so just like a simple contrast layer for the whole overall clip. Then I go to the red channel and take it down just a touch, so we can get this blue greenish tint for all the shadows and the midtones. Then for the blue layer, I want to take the shadows up a notch, so all the shadows get a bit more hint of a blue, and then make a extra point in the middle, and then drop the top part a bit down so we can get a little green yellowish thingy going on. And after that we have our final effect, and it looks pretty cool, I have to say. Don't you think that too? So now you should be a bit more effectivized and phenomenalized in your own way, because now you know how to make a very exciting Hancock landing for yourself, so that's pretty cool. Thanks for watching, guys. If you did enjoy this tutorial, don't forget to give me a like and a comment down below. Click on the links on the left side of the screen right now if you want to keep on learning with previous tutorials on this channel. And click on the circular icon on the right side of the screen and consider subscribing to this channel and never miss out on a video. Until next time, stay phenomenal.